I realize this is about to go massively out of focus, but before we start, can we talk about this pinafore situation? I mean, snag tights, you never fail me. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. So you remember when I said I was gonna do faves videos for each month of the year? Well, as it turns out, I am a bad judge of how much energy I will have in a given day, week, month, year. A lot of things also happened in the last 3 months that I didn't plan on sapping so much of my energy. I got sick in March, not COVID. My family visited me in April, which was lovely but tiring. And then of course, Eurovision season happened. I'm not gonna go into Eurovision too much in this video because, surprise, I already made a whole separate video over on my channel, so you can go check that out when you're done here. But as a consequence of being so exhausted the last 3 months, I also have not consumed as much media as I would have expected to, or definitely not as much regularly as I did in January and February. So with that being said, rather than abandon the faves video concept completely, I decided I would collate March, April, May into a spring faves video, if you will. So stick around, hopefully I won't ramble for too long about things, and if there's anything you would like me to go into further thoughts on in books, movies, TV, music, whatever, let me know, and I may do a whole separate video on it, but for most things you can probably just have a look at my Twitter feed. So with that being said, let's start off this spring faves video with what else? Books. Now, of all the things that I've been enjoying, books probably took the biggest hit in terms of productivity. I was really into it in the beginning of the year, but as I'm tired and exhausted, I'm not always up to do books, especially when I'm commuting. So usually I've been doing Sudoku in that case, which if you want to talk to me about Sudoku, or if you want me to do like a video where I do a puzzle, then just let me know. But that being said, I would like to start off with Wind Witch, which is the second book in the Witchland series by Susan Dennard. You may remember back in January that I read the first book, Truth Witch, and really enjoyed it, and the same can be said for this volume. There's always the trope of the second book where we have to expand the world and all of our characters kind of get split up into different arcs. And that happens here, but it also does it in a very interesting way. We have different character pairings that we wouldn't have expected, perhaps, and therefore relationships that flourish that we maybe didn't expect. And all of those character arcs and interactions are really entertaining. I really enjoyed it, and it did a really great job of expanding the world as well. So bring on book 3, which I have on hold from the library, and we'll see if I am able to pick that up at some point during my work week. The next book that I completed in March is a book called My Body, My Home, A Radical Guide to Resilience and Belonging. And it is written by Victoria Emanuela and Caitlin Metz, and it is an illustrated meditative book all about learning to love the body that you're in and just affirmations and whatnot. And I quite enjoyed it for what it was. I needed to hear some of that around that time, and it was a gift from one of my coworkers over the holidays. So it was nice, and it was a nice, relaxing read that I could slot in and amongst all the other books that I'm reading. Next, I read Drag Queen of Scots by Lawrence Chaney. Lawrence you might know as the winner of season 2 of Drag Race UK. Lawrence is a very special person in my life because Lawrence is also a big girl, and watching her win Drag Race UK made me realize that I could also look very beautiful as a big girl. So that was the impetus for me to seek out particularly plus size brands that had really nice clothing that looked really good on me, and yeah, leads to a lot of the things like the pinafore. That being said, as far as it is as a memoir, it's definitely kind of what you would expect from a Rue girl, which is not a dig on Lawrence Chaney as a person, but personally as an experience, I maybe expected maybe less like cute kitschy drag phrases. But it is what it is on the tin, and I do enjoy that the advice that they share throughout their journey and their life, and also just practical drag tips. I'm probably never going to get into drag, I don't know. I just don't have the mental capacity for it, but if you are looking to get into drag, this might be a good guide to start with. After that, I read The Subtle Knife by Philip Pullman. This is the second book in the His Dark Materials trilogy. I read Northern Lights last year and has also read it in college as part of a literature course, which when you think about the fact that I went to a Christian college is very interesting that that was assigned reading. But anyways, I have complicated feelings on The Subtle Knife because I wanted to explore the world more, or worlds rather, and they expand the world quite nicely, but I also think that it comes at the expense of actually progressing the story along. It feels quite stagnant. I do like Will and Lyra's relationship as friends, but the story, it seems to be in Act 2 for a long time, up until the last 30 pages, and suddenly we have to wrap things up and things are ending, and they don't really give a concrete, and it's very much leading into the third book, which I don't think I'm going to read right away, even though I do own it. I didn't really like the writing style, and I feel like it was just an attempt to kind of get one over on the reader, but I will finish the story because there are many elements that I'm very intrigued by, and I have to know the fate of the characters. So it's definitely the middle part of a bigger story, but doesn't really pull off its own story very well. Finally, for books that I completed in May, I read Gina Davis's memoir, Dying of Politeness. Gina Davis is, of course, a famous actress. She has appeared in many of my favorite movies, including A League of Their Own. And she is also a fierce advocate for women's equality in film. She has the Gina Davis Institute, which you may have heard of. They do a lot of research into gender equality, specifically in media for children and young adults. And it's a really interesting story. It reminds me a lot of kind of my personality as a person, really wanting to please people and not ask questions and try not to be a nuisance. I could learn from this potentially. And she also made it clear that she's very much still learning, even, you know, a few decades into her career. So I really appreciated this, and I will link the Gina Davis Institute in the description because it is a wealth of resources. And of course, y'all, go watch your movies. Go watch A League of Their Own, especially. There's no crying in baseball. There is crying in baseball. I've seen a lot of men cry in baseball. So that's pretty much it for books. I did start a book that I then finished in June and read more in June. I'll talk about that in next month's recap. But I do want to move on to movies. And before I get into new movies that I went and saw in cinemas in the last 3 months, I do just want to list a few of the things that I rewatched. So we're gonna start with Birds of Prey, severely underrated DC film, probably my favorite DC film, and Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn is gonna be great. Can't wait for the Barbie movie, woo! Fiddler on the Roof, of course, Topol passed away this year, and truly, in Fiddler on the Roof, put on one of the most amazing performances ever put on screen. Should have won an Academy Award for that. We finished our How to Train Your Dragon trilogy rewatch, and of course, I cried. We watched Pacific Rim, which is just, as I put it on Letterboxed, a good-ass time at the movies. As is Booksmart. Booksmart is one of those movies that I have been raving about for years. I even did a Women in Film review on it back when I was doing that series, which you can check out. Amazing. Deserved so much more. Annapurna, please learn how to distribute your movies properly. We watched The Mummy, which is perfectly fine, a little bit racist, but you know, some of you had your bisexual awakenings to this movie, and for that, I'm very proud of you. Happy Pride! Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, which was one of my childhood favorites because I was obsessed with Lindsay Lohan when I was little. And it's just a fun time, and the costume design is amazing. If you haven't watched Modern Girl's style analysis of this movie, it is a must-watch. We're gonna keep crying because I rewatched Won't You Be My Neighbor, which if you look at my old WordPress blog was my favorite movie of 2018. I saw it in cinemas twice, once by myself and once with my mom, and we cried both times. Mr. Rogers just was incredible, and God, we need his energy now more than ever. Mr. Rogers loved the gays, by the way, just so you're aware. Yay, Pride! We watched The Prince of Egypt, which is 10 out of 10 masterpiece, one of the best animated films, one of the best films ever made, and truly one of the only good pieces of, quote, Christian media out there. And rounding this out, I rewatched Emma, which I also did a Women in Film review on. It's amazing. It's been one of those that I've been meaning to rewatch for a while, and every time, like, we come up with something else, but no, it was the time to watch Emma, and it was Lovely. So that's everything I rewatched. In terms of new movies, I did watch Women Talking on March 1st, right before the Oscars, and it was amazing. It was quiet, but in the most powerful way possible. I think the script deservedly absolutely won the Academy Award. We love you, Sarah Polley. But now, I didn't grow up in a Christian cult like these did, but there is commentary to be had about what women are taught to do in those positions and the lengths that the men will go to protect themselves from punishment in cases in that movie of the R word, not the mental health R word, the assault R word. But it was really good. I highly recommend you watch, although just be prepared for some very, very heavy subject matter. On the opposite end of that spectrum, at the very end of the month, before my partner and I went to pick up my parents from the airport, we watched Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, which is amazing. And we love Chris Pine so much. Truly the best Chris. There's no argument. We went and saw it at the Odeon Leicester Square in London, and it was so great. The popcorn, by the way, was like in a bucket this high for each of us. Somehow we managed to finish it. But again, a good ass time at the movies, and this movie felt like an actual D&D campaign that was playing out. And as someone who has taken part in at least one D&D campaign long term, I cannot give it a higher compliment than it captured that spirit perfectly. Everyone was having a great time. I wish Regé Jean Page was in the movie a little bit more, but also like he kind of fulfills the role of someone who like comes along to the campaign for 1 week for like one adventure and then like dips and doesn't come back, which I loved. And finally, for new movies, we went and saw John Wick 4. This was a bit of an outlier for me. I'm not usually an action movie person or like straight up violent movie action person, but one of the first things that my partner did when I moved to the UK was have me watch the first 2 movies so we could go see the third one together. And I quite like it. We love Keanu. I love the way that they choreograph everything. You can see everything happen. My one qualm with this particular chapter is I feel like the fight scenes went on for a little bit too long, but like only just. But it was very interesting. I love the expansion of the lore. If you know Paris very well or you're from Paris, you probably don't appreciate how fast you can get from location to location, but I digress. It was a good time. So now we're gonna move on to TV. And before I sit down and talk about the things that I did watch this month, I do want to take a quick moment to express my support for the Writers Guild of America, who are currently on strike at the moment. This is something that hits close to home to me because I am a writer. I got my degree in screenwriting. I'm not currently a member of any Writers Guild at the moment, but it's very scary what's happening at the moment, especially since the Supreme Court has now made it easier for companies to sue workers who decide to strike for lost wages, productivity, whatever. This is something that you really need to be aware of, not just in terms of entertainment, but just the future of, you know, things being made. AI is a really big talking point at the moment, and it's also a conversation about the living wage. I will link to a couple of resources in the description where you can learn more about what's happening, what the writers are fighting for. The actors may or may not go on strike. They did vote to authorize one if it came to it, so we will see how that goes. And the Directors Guild made a deal with the studios, so we'll see how that works. But on that note, I just want to highlight a couple of the specials that I watched this month that are more of documentaries. I, of course, watched Miley Cyrus's Endless Summer Vacation Backyard Sessions on Disney+. I've been a Miley fan for a while, and she sang The Climb as well as many of the songs from her new album, which sounded great, and she's a really great and I feel like underrated performer. So if you have a chance to go watch that, watch that. My dad started watching a documentary called Lionesses, the Champions of Europe, which is of course about the English national women's soccer team that won the Euro Championships last summer. Amazing. Watch it. I believe it's on iPlayer. I watched Ed Sheeran, The Sum of It All, which is the 4-part docuseries produced to promote his new album, Subtract. And I do need to go and listen to a few of his albums because I have his first 3, but not any of the ones after. But it's a very interesting look at his life over the past year. He has a lot of personal tragedies happen, and it's very rare, I feel like, for a celebrity to be as honest as they are in a documentary like this, especially about their mental health, their physical health, the loss of a friend, potentially life-threatening illnesses of a loved one. It's a lot to put on camera, and I appreciate that he let people kind of see him as he is and how he's struggling with that, because I think it's important for people to kind of see that they're not alone in the types of things that they're struggling with. And finally, my partner and I on Netflix one day saw a thumbnail for Trainwreck Woodstock 99, and we're like, that would be interesting to watch. And some of these people who put on this festival should be in jail, but they're not, and that's all I'll say on that. But go watch that. On that note, in terms of actual TV series, I finished up The Piano, which is of course the series where Miga and Lang Lang were sitting in UK train stations and picking someone from each one to play with them at the Royal Festival Hall. As a pianist myself, I really enjoyed it. I thought Lucy, who was the person that they picked from Leeds, was absolutely lovely. And it was just a nice, lovely bit of television. And Claudia Winkleman is such a lovely and gracious host. I've started watching Abbott Elementary Season 2. I have not finished it yet because I lost our Disney Plus password and I had to text my mom. Yes, I use my mom's account, don't judge me. But of course, it's hilarious and excellent as always. We watched the full series 15 of Taskmaster, which was insane, and I love it so much. I feel like in terms of like a perfect reality show, panel show, Taskmaster is it. Greg is great, Alex is great. Every time that they like announce who's gonna be on the cast, I feel like, oh, that's never gonna be able to top the previous season. They were so great. And then they do. I wanna be on Taskmaster. Can someone hire me to be on Taskmaster, please? And finally, my dear, dear love, Ted Lasso. I've loved this series so much. It's funny, it's poignant. Hannah Waddingham is my wife, but I talked about that in the last video. I feel like everyone is firing on all cylinders, and especially in this final season. And I just want to say to everyone, because I've seen some people say that they didn't like this season because it didn't turn out the way that they wanted it to. And to that I say, 1, fanfiction is a thing. You can write your own ending if you want. And 2, the writers know these characters better than you do. I think everyone went on such a believable arc, and I feel like the point of the season was to really highlight how Ted had changed the culture, and I feel like it was a conscious choice to have him kind of be in the background a bit in a lot of episodes, because it's all about how these other characters have grown and the positive effect that he has had on Richmond as a football team and an organization. And spoiler alert, for the end, he left them in very good hands. And while it didn't fulfill my expectation for what I would have loved to happen as an immigrant, I would have loved Ted to be able to stay and eventually get his citizenship and whatnot. I understand why the writers did what they did, and I think it worked really well. Not as well as The Good Place, which is one of my favorite shows and finales of all time, but still really well. Honestly, the biggest compliment I can give it is I looked forward to spending an hour plus with all of these characters every single week. Sometimes that's enough, and I love it so much. So kudos to you for keeping it short and sweet and giving us just a whole new load of characters to love. Oh, and of course, in terms of television, I did watch Eurovision, but I made a whole separate video on that, which you can go watch. All I'll say for now is the broadcast itself, great. The viewing experience, almost perfect except for the end. But again, I made a whole other video on that, so go watch that when you're done here. Music, I'll just mention that, of course, yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Eurovision music over the last however long, and I have 7 years worth of Eurovision albums now, which means I have now curated a whole playlist that I will play at my Renewing My Vows reception whenever we decide to do that in 5-10 years time, and it's going to be called Thank You Finland So Much for This. Eurovision, it's crazy, it's party. In other news, I have nearly completed my entire iTunes library listen through, which I've been on a quest to do since November. I've been listening to it by album this time in alphabetical order so I can get the full album's experience. I haven't done that in a while. and I am very nearly done with it. I finished the initial run of it, and then I bought 4 new CDs near my birthday, and so I'm currently listening to those, and then the spreadsheet will be done. But on that note, here are the 4 albums I bought at HMV because it was the day before my birthday and it was nice. So first, I bought Louis Tomlinson's second album, Faith in the Future. Sonically, it's a bit of a progression, but still in the same vein as his first album, Walls, which I quite enjoy, and I love the sound that he's gone for. It's so unapologetically emblematic of the northern Britpop rock scene, and I love that so much for him. I love that he's carving his own niche. Next, I bought Josh Groban's musical theater covers album, Stages. I am that basic. Listen to me earlier, I watched an Ed Sheeran documentary. This has been a Spotify fave of mine for a while, and I've just been looking for the right time / low level of money anxiety to purchase this, and it's really good. I really recommend particularly his rendition of What I Did for Love from A Chorus Line, Empty Chairs at Empty Tables from Les Mis, and of course, If I Loved You, his duet with Audra McDonald from Carousel, and his Children Will Listen, Not While I'm Around Sondheim mashup. Okay, I'm done. Just go listen to this album. It's been a fave of mine for a while, and I'm glad I own it now. I purchased Demi Lovato's Holy Favok, as I'm going to call it, so that the algorithm does not demonetize me, and so my grandma's not offended. I have loved Demi Lovato for a while. I need to do a deep discog listen through of her entire discography. I've done that for Beyonce before. Now that I'm done with my music listen through, I have a whole bunch of artists I want to do this for. Taylor Swift is another one. So excited for Speak Now Taylor's version. Thank you. I'm someone who really enjoyed her rock-tinged music from when she was a Disney kid, and Rock Demi is back! She's releasing rock covers of like her big singles lately. Yay, Demi, I'm so glad they're back. Oh my god. And finally, I bought the special edition of Sigrid's second album, How to Let Go. I really enjoyed Sigrid's first album, Sucker Punch, and that sort of electronica pop sound as one of the inspirations behind one of my screenplays that I'm writing. And I love this evolution of her sound. I think it keeps in that electronica vein, but there's a lot more influences from other genres in there. She even has a duet with Bring Me the Horizon called Bad Life that I really enjoy. And the special edition is actually 2 discs. So one is the regular album, and disc 2 is more or less the acoustic versions of all the songs, plus an extra song called Blue. I love all of the versions of the songs on this album, I have to say. Just incredible. I love the sound that she's gone for. So yes, with my music purchases, I definitely kept it on the artists whose music I already love spectrum. So a bit of a safe purchases, but there are albums that I'm definitely looking forward to. Lastly, I do want to just touch on figure skating a little bit because I made it such a big part of the last 2 Faves videos I've made. Of course, in this time, the skating season has ended for about a month and a half, 2 months ago, but we did get Junior World Figure Skating Championships, Senior Worlds, and World Team Trophy, which I really enjoyed. What I'll say for all of those is, 1, if you want to hear my actual thoughts, you can follow my Twitter feed, but 2, I have a public playlist called Helen's Favorite Skating Programs that hopefully you'll be able to view depending on what country you're in, but basically like every time that there is a program that makes me go, wow, oh my god, that was perfect or near perfect or just something special, I've added it. It's about 170 videos long now, and I'm pretty sure there's like multiple versions of some programs on there. But if you are able to watch it, and you know, depending on geographically where you are, because I know not everybody gets the ISU YouTube channel, but go watch. There's a lot of my personal favorites in there, and they encompass both junior and senior skating. What I will say at the moment is that the rhythm dance theme for next season is 80s music, and some of these choices are very interesting. This might be one where I have to involve my mom in watching some of these. All that being said, there are a lot of exciting things coming up. There's a lot of juniors that I love that are going to move up to senior. It's going to be very interesting to see how the junior and senior competition stacks up, especially now that the age minimums have been raised. There have been a lot of interesting developments in terms of pairs and ice dance, where one of the skaters is too old to compete junior, but the other one is too young to compete senior. We've seen a lot of teams split because of that, including my favorite Japanese junior pair. Side note, Japan, please keep your pair disciplines together. I'm sad that Daisuke and Kana retired, but like, you have multiple spots, especially for pairs now. You have the pairs world champions, Japan. You need to like foster that talent. Sadly, there is going to be no Grand Prix UK like there was last year because China is going to host their typical Grand Prix event, and the slot that would be organized by Russia has again gone to Finland, which I can't say I blame them, but Finnish ice dance teams, Finnish skaters, you have an assignment for the exhibition program this year. I need to see at least one cha-cha-cha exhibition program. Yuka and Yuho, specifically, you. I've seen what you can do in your ice dance programs, and now you've got 2 slots at Worlds and you can go. So like, come on, do it. And that's all I have on that. Yeah, there's not much going on outside of that at the moment. It's summer, it's warm most of the time, although it's a bit chilly today and a bit cloudy. I've got lots of things that I plan on watching / doing. We've got a trip planned in July. Not as big of one as we would have liked to, but you know, in this economy, but it is going to be a place that we have wanted to go for a while. And in terms of future content here, I did hint that there was a project that I undertook in March that I was really excited about, and I do want to share it with you guys. So I can't make any promises of when that video will be, because it all depends on me having the spoons to film it and edit it, and I've got this to do, but we'll see. I would like to do it this summer, so yeah. As always, you can check me out on my social medias. All of those are linked below. You can check me out on all of my media tracking. So Storygraph, Serializd, Letterboxed, all in the description. I'm not currently doing much for That Euro site at the moment because I am tired and I need to recover from Eurovision, but we still do have a lot of content coming out. There is news happening. So you can follow us on social media at That Euro site and at That Euro podcast for pretty much all platforms, as well as thateurovisionsite.com, which is our actual website. And you can check me out on my website at www.helen-groothuis.com, and that collates pretty much everything in terms of content that I do. I don't write on there as often as I used to, but you know, keep your eye out. On that note, I'm going to enjoy the rest of my day off of work and maybe consume some Pride-related content. All that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully I'll be able to get back to making monthly recap videos because I'm starting to consume more things now. But until then, thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me. Remember to keep living awesome lives, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.